Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Betty Chen. From North Korea and Russia's military cooperation to the escalating Israel-Palestine conflict, outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden at a G20 summit in Brazil once again emphasized support for Ukraine and, together with other world leaders, called for a ceasefire between Israel and Palestine. Biden also, for the first time at the APEC meeting, authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-made long-range missile systems, ATACMS, against Russia. How should Biden's actions be interpreted, and what will be Trump's next step? Furthermore, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell stated that U.S., Japan, South Korea trilateral cooperation prompted by the Biden administration since it took office is the core strategy for maintaining stability in Asia. Will the incoming Trump administration prioritize continuing U.S., Japan, South Korea cooperation? Furthermore, what is the reason behind North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's first condemnation of the U.S. after the election? Joining us today are Arthur Ding, Professor Emeritus at National Zhengzhi University and Taiwan U.S.-China military expert, and Lai Yi-zhong, Prospect Foundation President. A warm welcome to both of you on the show. So the U.S. government had long prohibited Ukraine from using long-range weapons to avoid escalating the Russia-Ukraine conflict. However, on the eve of the 1,000th day of the Russia-Ukraine war, President Joe Biden, while attending the G20 summit, not only called for support for Ukraine's sovereignty and a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, but also at the APEC summit, authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-made long-range missile systems, ATACMS, and approved the provision of anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine. So we just want to know, what is the purpose behind this decision made by Biden? Not to mention he only had a few weeks ahead of him and he is going to retire soon. So what about the timing? And he also said that he would like to continue pushing for a ceasefire agreement. What's your view on this? We start with President Lai.
Yes, I believe that the Biden administration has been criticized for not allowing Ukraine to use a U.S. weapon to really strike at the Russian territories, in which the weapon by Russia, they stockpiled to attack the Ukraine. And that basically means that the Ukraine is fighting with one hand being tied. And that also inhibits their capability to really defend for their own country, as well as to deter against the further Russian attack. And so with his days in office numbered, and also with the fear of when Trump came in, the Ukraine probably could be pressured into the peace negotiation, in which it will be negotiating from the position of the weakness rather than from strengths. So the relaxing the constraints on the Ukraine about what they could use and where they can hit in terms of the weaponry they received from the United States could help Ukraine to gain ameliorate, to get the situation to be a little bit more advantageous to it, to Ukraine itself, to help their negotiating position further on.
Do you think that the decision is a bit too late, since Biden only have a few weeks left? Maybe Trump will turn his back on the military support for Ukraine.
Well, you're probably late, but it's better late than not.
Better late than never, right?
Yeah.
So on the same day, Biden made the decision. Russia bombed Ukraine's power grid in one of its largest attacks since the war began. So what does this signify, Professor Ding?
Well, we know, as just following Yi-zhong's comment, peace and the so-called ceasefire is desirable. There's no doubt about it. But the question is, we all know that before we reach so-called real, so-called peace or ceasefire, each side of the stakeholders always, intensify its war fighting or war operation in order to, to better advantage over the other side. So that's why, this can partially explain why President Biden to provide, allow the Ukraine to use this kind of long-range weapons. On the other hand, I would say Putin also knows that. So that's why Putin launched some kind of the new missile, media says kind of ICBM, but actually it's a medium-range missile hitting the Ukraine so-called major assets in order to neutralize or offset the effort made by the United States and Ukraine to gain advantage over over Russia. So that's why I'm saying that peace and ceasefire is desirable. There's no doubt about it. But the real question is before they reach the peace and the ceasefire, each side will intensify its war fighting effort in order to gain advantage over the other side.
We just talked about the fact that Trump will return to the White House soon. So some people speculate that all these efforts from the U.S. in terms of providing military aid to the U.S. might be hindered by his resume of power. So do you think that it means that the Biden administration's effort will be futile? And what's your perspective on Trump's return of power, President Lai?
Now, I'm not going to say that the Biden administration's effort will be futile, but at least the effort definitely is trying to help the Ukraine to gain more advantage for the future negotiation. And the Trump himself could actually cease or at least phase out the kind of the military support for Ukraine due to the Trump administration's the prioritization of the China and Indo-Pacific there. So the anticipation definitely plays a role about what the Biden administration would like to do. And also, this development could also be under the request from the Ukraine President Zelensky due to the same considerations. I think that also applies to why Zelensky in August this year, he planned to attack the Russian and occupy a big chunk of territory there. Because I think that the Zelensky probably is also anticipating for the pressuring into peace negotiation should Trump be elected the president, that he needs everything that he can get to have a better negotiation positions. And so that a certain area within Russia would probably help him to have some leverage in terms of the negotiation further on. Anyway, that whether this effort will actually change the calculus in the battlefield, I think right now every calculation is about what's going to happen in the negotiation table, and that determines the military action and the strategies.
So President Lai, you talk about prioritization. Do you think that after Trump takes office, will Ukraine continues to be a priority?
And probably not, because not only Trump himself, but also the Trump team also pointed out that they would not think that Ukraine should be the U.S. priority. And U.S. will have the big responsibility in Indo-Pacific, especially facing China. And also United States stressed that anything happen in the Indo-Pacific, particularly in Taiwan, they would not anticipate that Europe will be able to come to rescue the United States or come to help the U.S. militarily. So the U.S. has to do this by themselves, and then the U.S. has to let the European country to show them no responsibility in terms of Ukraine issues.
So moving on, we talk about this new ATACMS missiles. So Professor Ding, do you think that this ATACMS missiles can serve as a deterrent? And also we understand that this time they can use the anti-personnel landmines. So what's so special about these landmines?
Well, so-called the long-range missile and the landmine, they are just weapons. In order to, we know that the Ukraine war actually is kind of a somewhat traditional land warfare. Also incorporate with so-called new technology, like we talk about UAV. So if this kind of a traditional land warfare, then each side have to occupy the other side's territory inch by inch. So that's why the landmine become quite useful, because Russia has no capability to overwhelm through the air power to overwhelm the Ukraine military force. So that's why landmine really become useful tool for the Ukraine force to set up a landmine, then can stop the Russian force, Russian ground force to further into Ukraine's territory, and also can stop Russians' further movement. So that's why landmine become quite useful tools for Ukraine force. But actually, the so-called long-range missile is also useful to hitting Russia's so-called major assets. For instance, logistic facilities, so on and so forth, to slow down or to neutralize Russia's military capability. So that's why long-range missile is useful, but it's not the only one. So Ukraine folks have to use all kinds of military tools to organize useful military capability and launch the operation in the battlefield.
But do you think that by having this kind of green light to using the long-range missiles, does it mean that the battlefield will be further expanded in terms of the scope?
Yeah, inevitably, because it's kind of a longer range of missiles, so inevitably you will hit some target inside Russia's territory. For instance, the logistics facilities or ammunition depots, so on and so forth. So this really can help to slow down or neutralize Russia's military operation in the battlefield. So that's why, to some extent, can explain why U.S. allow Ukraine folks to use these kind of American weapons.
Let's shift the focus. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, during a speech with the military, also condemned the U.S. for its continuous military support to Ukraine and also Israel. And he claimed that the U.S. is prolonging the wars. And he also stated that for North Korea, probably they will strengthen the nuclear weapons so that they can be fully prepared for war. So how serious are Kim Jong-un's criticisms of the U.S. and his mention of the nuclear war being imminent? President Lai.
I think his message actually contained two different audience. The first one is about condemning the U.S. for proliferating and prolonging the war, and so that Kim Jong-un could justify why the North Korea would like to send troops into Russia. Because the send troops into Russia, basically that means that you are expanding this war from the 2 countries into 3 countries, even probably more. So that is the argument laid out by Kim Jong-un, is to justify why North Korea would like to join the war in Russia's invasion against Ukraine. And then the nuclear weaponry statement is about, first of all, it's consistent with the North Korea about a year ago when the North Korea, his doctrine no longer as the no first use. And North Korea would like to use the nuclear weapons, including the tactical nuclear weapons, in a battlefield. So that means that the North Korea not only changed the nuclear doctrine, but also a threat that it actually could use them. I think so. The second message is about this, especially the North Korea is considering that should the North Korea enter the war zone in the Ukraine, then the South Korea and Japan, due to their reaction, not only about Ukraine but also in Korean Peninsula, could endanger the North Korea's strategic positions. So that North Korea is actually responding with that possible development with a nuclear threat.
So right before Trump is going to take office, Kim Jong-un has made this kind of statement and taken all kinds of actions, also by sending the North Korean troops to enter the battlefield between the Russia and Ukraine. Do you think that this is a way for Kim Jong-un to challenge Trump, Professor Ding?
I would say for Kim Jong-un's, the goal is to, we know that North Korea has been isolated internationally and diplomatically for quite a long time, frankly speaking, and has been sanctioned by Western countries because since early 1990s, North Korea consistently continued to develop nuclear weapons. And the development of the nuclear weapon has been sanctioned by United Nations resolution, so on and so forth. And the Western countries include Japan, United States, really to implement and execute this kind of sanction. So that's why, basically speaking, North Korea has been isolated for quite a long time. They are short of the material, so on and so forth, and they heavily rely on, previously heavily rely on China's support of all kinds of necessity and material, so on and so forth. But the war in Ukraine really gave North Korea a good opportunity because we know that Russia, probably underestimate the Ukraine's capability. So Russia fall into a problem. No, they are short of the weapon and the material. So but that's why they come to the North Korea for assistance. North Korea not just provide the so-called soldier, and also provide so-called some kind of a weapon. So that's why I would say, for North Korea, on the one hand, they need to move out of the so-called diplomatic isolation, and on the other hand, they probably make tremendous foreign reserve from Russia. So I don't think the main purpose for Kim Jong-un is not for the Trump, but for this own itself.
So talking about the situation of North Korea, according to U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell, he said that over the past 4 years of Biden's administration, he has been trying to engage in dialogue with North Korea, but it seems that there's no progress and there was no diplomatic engagement between the U.S. and North Korea. So how do you view this lack of diplomatic engagement between the U.S. and North Korea? President Lai.
Actually, I was a little surprised about the Kurt Campbell. He stated that because I remember back in at least before year 2016, during the Obama administrations, United States has a so strategic patience toward North Korea. That is, the U.S. would not respond to North Korea provocations to give the North Korea what they wanted. The United States would not get into the negotiation when the North Korea is doing the provocative things. And that strategies in year 2018, when Trump started his engagement with Kim Jong-un, so that has been tossed away. And the U.S. strategic community, especially the people close to the Biden or the Obama administration, actually criticized Trump for a meeting with Kim Jong-un, criticizing that as that's an engagement for the engagement's sake, or just a meeting for the public show with no content. So when Kurt Campbell said this, I think that's sort of the reverse of its earlier strategy of the strategic patience. And then I think the issue is that right now the South Korean President Moon, he is more hardline toward North Korea, and his thinking is basically aligned with the United States. And if under that conditions, then the encouragement for the U.S. and North Korea direct engagement, that could result to a more advantageous position for the U.S. Is that the case that the Kurt Campbell actually thought of even playing around about this idea? I do not know. But I have to honestly say that that statement is a surprise to me.
So let's continue to talk about Trump and also North Korea. Back in when President Trump was still in office, he made a historic trip to North Korea, and it seems that he's very good friends with Kim Jong-un, actually, back at the time. Now he's returning to power. Do you think that he's able to solve the situation and to rekindle his friendship with Kim? Professor Ding.
I would say President Trump, in his first term, overemphasized so-called personal relationship with individual leaders of different countries. But now I guess he learned something from his first term. So this is first point. Second point is that we have to know that in the United States, overall, there's a sense of kind of anti-North Korea sentiment. We have to remember that North Korea has been included as one of the so-called axis of evils. So we have to remember that. So, yeah, probably President Trump has high expectation to solve the so-called North Korea nuclear problem, but it will take tremendous effort because, as we said earlier, North Korea has been isolated for 4 or 5 decades. So to some extent, from Kim Jong-un's perspective, nuclear weapon is kind of a leverage in order for North Korea to be able to re-enter so-called international community. So how can President Trump and his new team solve the so-called North Korea's nuclear problem? What kind of assurance President Trump can offer to the North Korea in the context of so-called anti-North Korea sentiment? It's not easy, I would say. So And also, I don't think, probably to some extent, the North Korea issue is not a priority because how to solve the so-called Ukraine war has the first priority for President Trump and his team. So probably, the North Korea's nuclear issue is not first priority, but how to persuade North Korea move out from the Ukraine war probably is more important.
You talk about persuading North Korea not to send their troops, but it seems that according to some media, Kim has decided to send 100,000 troops to participate in a war to help Russia to fight against Ukraine. Do you think that it shows Putin might want to have a prolonged war with Ukraine, President?
And I think that's a definite because the Putin, first of all, it revealed two things. First of all, that the Russian, the war potential has been degraded significantly, so that it needs the outside help, and they resort Putin this time asked North Korea for this help. And second, that also means that the North Korea and Russia, the special relationship, has moved to the new level. And for the future conflict should happen in the Korean Peninsula, we should anticipate Russia probably will also reciprocate by sending its support for the North Korea. So, and then I think that also connected with your earlier question about the Kurt Campbell, his statement regarding how the U.S. and North Korea engagement that cannot work, because the issue is that in the past, the United States sort of outsourced the North Korean management issue to China, and believing that China, the containing North Korea and managing North Korea is also of your interest. So China, you should do the things. If the Kurt Campbell is actually talking about the U.S. direct engagement with North Korea, that probably means that the United States no longer believe that China either willing or had the capability to manage North Korea. So that probably would be the change of the strategy, number one. And number two, that also reflected that seeing the North Korea and get involved in the Ukraine war. So probably the Biden administration is also believed that should they have a direct engagement with North Korea successfully, and probably North Korea would not get involved into the Ukraine war, and that complicated the whole situation in the European theater in that end. So that probably reflected these two thinking, in my view.
Indeed, if the Korean forces join the war, definitely the situation will become even more complicated. So, Professor Ding, could you please tell us a bit more about the North Korean forces, the Storm Corps Special Forces? What are their advantages and what's the challenges they might face if they join the war?
Yeah, so-called report about the so-called Storm Corps in Ukraine has been all kinds of a report, but has not been formal confirmed by North Korea. But we know that according to media reports, so-called Storm Corps is kind of special force. We know that special force has limited function, means that they execute the so-called special operation, but sometimes in overseas. But the question is that I would say this kind of Storm Corps, they probably have very good so-called language training, because previously their main target is South Korea, no doubt. So the language training definitely is try to more proficiency in South Koreans' language skills, so on and so forth. But now, if they really fight in a battlefield in Ukraine, the first one definitely is the language proficiency, right? If you want to penetrate into a Ukraine territory, how can you interact with Ukraine people, right? So this is one major problem. Another one is that basically speaking, North Korea, in terms of new technology, North Korea has been very backward, frankly speaking. But these days, special operation force, you really need to able to operate very high-tech facility and instruments. And the really Storm Corps has this kind of a facility or instrument or not, we don't know. So this will be a kind of a deficiency, I would say, that all challenge so-called Storm Corps is going to face. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. During President Biden's administration, the priority of his policy is to ensure the cooperation among the U.S., Japan, and South Korea, making sure that they will be able to fight against these authoritarian nations. Do you think that Trump will continue this policy, or do you think that, well, he would just focus more on the America first, or to be a more isolationist policy? President Lai.
I believe that we probably will see the two traits of the Trump administrations. First, by Trump himself, he mostly will focus on about the burden sharing, how he believed that the U.S. allies should shoulder more in order to have a more reciprocal relationship between the U.S. allies such as Japan and South Korea vis-a-vis the United States. But his national security team probably would also focus about the strategic cooperation, especially in the face of the Chinese threat, as well as the possible Russia's involvement in the Indo-Pacific contingencies. And his national security team, led by whether that's the Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor, or the Secretary of State-to-be, Mark Rubio, I think both of them will very much focus about alliance management and enhancing alliance and cooperations.
Professor Ding?
I would say this has been a trend. The U.S. so-called traditional airline member has been urged and encouraged to take initiative to work out some kind of solution or so-called quasi-alliance system in order to make up the kind of there's a term so-called lattice work, so on and so forth, in order to strengthen the so-called traditional alliance system led by United States.
Definitely, we will have to keep watching how things will develop in the region. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for your insights. If you like our show, please search for us on YouTube and also give us a thumbs up. Hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.